All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Carvel's first community meeting starting on Mondays. We are going to now have these move from every other Wednesday to every Monday, starting at 11:30 a.m. Pacific time, 2:30 p.m. Eastern time. If it's your first time joining us, welcome. So happy to have you here. Just want to do a quick reminder to pay attention to our code of conduct whenever you are attending these meetings. And I just realized it's actually not on the agenda, but I will add it to that now. Today, we're going to have Aaron Hurley take over. He's going to go over the agenda items and what to expect from these meetings moving forward. So Aaron, if you want to take it away.
Cool. I can share my screen. Do some Zoom manipulation. There we go. Cool. So yeah, welcome to our new format. So you can take a brief look at the agenda and see we're planning to just do some brief updates as to the current things we have in flight, what's coming next. Planning to do, a deeper discussion as to what are we planning for this week, so that the necessary folks that are doing the work understand what's expected here. And then we also have an area for discussion topics. So if anyone here right now wants to discuss something, please add stuff here. If there aren't any topics that are added, then we may just go deeper into the story discussions for this week. Cool. So we'll start with then some updates. So we've been working on a schemas feature within YTT for a bit now. Probably one quick disclosure is we just switched to Zenhub as our backlog manager. So we're still learning the ins and outs of it. So please be patient, but hopefully, this will be an area where we're able to do more of the planning in public and just be more transparent of what our backlog looks like, so that folks can see, whether their issues are being prioritized, and if not, then that's a good signal that this could be a great area for you to contribute. So diving into this particular epic of work, YTT schemas, this is something that we have determined, as a configuration author, they want to provide a way to enforce and document their API. So this is really a way to, validate how to use their tools correctly. Right now, we are focused on this first bit of structure checking. So various type checks to make sure the correct type of value is being provided within your configuration files. We'll dive into what is still planned for this iteration, but currently this is our immediate focus. Once we finish the structure checking, type checking was done here. This is the MVP, and then the second YTT schemas feature set is going to be validations, which isn't planned here, but this is our immediate scope is MVP. I guess before moving on, I don't know, feel free to ask questions throughout, and also, other folks on the team, please feel free to jump in if you want to provide any additional color. Cool. So we have schemas that's in flight. Another track of work that we're working on is image package include non-distributable layers. So this stemmed from an issue that was submitted back in August from Eli. but the idea here was there are, well, image package currently does not allow the ability to relocate images with foreign layers to air-gapped environments. So an example here would be like Microsoft proprietary software. There's certainly, more context you can get into in our open source Slack channel. But the update here is we have been working on this. At this point, we're I believe going through some PR updates, and there's just some additional cleanup that we came upon. But we're getting pretty close to landing this item and providing documentation. So this will be a nice win to make relocation of software that has non-distributable layers within them. So, and you can see Dennis provided the remaining items here. So please feel free to dive in, or if you have any questions, you can voice those right now. Cool, we'll keep moving. So the upcoming things that we're planning to work on is some more image package focus. So we have a performance investigation. And this is just some reports of image package copy sometimes taking too long. And this was originally reported to us before we did a substantial refactor. So this chunk of work is really taking the time to fully explore whether this problem still exists or not, and then two, to understand the problem and work towards making that fix. Following image package work, then we have another upcoming feature allowing bundles to reference other bundles, so recursive bundles. So this is a feature where you're able to nest a bundle, which is an artifact within another bundle, so that ultimately you can kind of nest all the necessary dependencies that you need, and do so in a way where ultimately, it's always a bundle that you can provide, but sometimes those bundles can reference other bundles and just kind of nest logically. So we'll chat more about that once we get into our weekly planning portion. And then similarly, as another thing we'll dive deeper into today, is for YTT, improving overlay error messages. So this is a topic that has been a pain point with YTT and getting particularly new users to YTT learning to use overlays effectively. So what we're trying to do is improve on the existing error messages that we currently return, and we have a couple stories that are written as ways that we plan to progress through making these improvements. Cool. So I guess any questions or thoughts from folks before we dive into this week's plans? All right, keep going then. So here is our Zenhub board. There's kind of a lot going on. I generally try to collapse pipelines whenever possible. But we have this column which kind of shows what are our epics, which is kind of like a group of features, or maybe just a particularly meaty feature. So you can kind of see these are the things that we mostly just talked about. YTT schemas, image package, etc. Then prioritize backlog. This is the work that we're planning to do, but hasn't yet been started. And then in progress is work that's currently picked up and in progress. Like I mentioned, we did just move to Zenhub, so there's a little bit of cleanup here. It did actually provide some good insight to us as to where like some issues kind of stalled out and need some attention. So it looks like we have a lot in progress, and that's partially because we need to tie up some loose ends there. So if we dive into the plan for this week, then we can start by covering, some of the stories that the team has discussed already and pointed. But please, feel free to voice any thoughts as we go. But so this first story here, and this is following the YTT schemas epic, is for the overlay default operation on array items is append. So as a configuration consumer, I want YTT when I specify an array item in an overlay that unless I indicate otherwise, YTT should assume I mean to append that item to an existing array, so that when I perform this comment edit, I don't have to explicitly instruct YTT to do so. So some context here and some general discussion is also linked here. But we've encountered some, I guess, like feedback or maybe some confusion about ways that we could just maybe make the overlay feature play more nicely. So to make the UX a little easier to understand, and it might make it a bit more obvious once you start taking a look at these examples. So let's see, if we look at example number 1, where the non-empty left, so that's kind of like the base, and the no explicit operations in the right, so the right is the overlay. So if the left is not empty, so list you can see contains 2 items, and then there are no explicit operations in the right, so you can kind of see there's a match but nothing else, then this is what you would expect, which is the 2 overlay values being appended. Does that make sense to folks, or any questions so far? Cool. So that's the idea. We kind of walk through a couple more examples here. What happens when the array in the left is empty? It appends. What happens when the array in the right is empty? Nothing is added. And then we also have another condition where there's an implied replace. So taking a look at this example, so the left has these 2, this list has these 2 items. And then the overlay, we can see that there is an additional overlay match here where it's saying by index 1. And then if we look at the final value here, we can see that default value 1, my value B, and then my value A. So there's some things going on here. So the one thing is the implied replace. So B is going to replace what is at the index 1th position. And that's where you can see default value 2 was replaced by B, as well as the my value A was appended to this list. folks have any questions? I know there's quite a bit here, and overlays are probably not the easiest concept to immediately grok. So if you have questions, please don't hesitate. Jonas, yep.
Yeah, so just looking at this, when you add or rather when you load the base YAML there, is is it always appending? Is that the default?
Yeah, so that's kind of the gist of the story, is that we want append to be the default operation for when you overlay on top of the base.
Gotcha. Yeah, I missed that part. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Cool. And then we just
Aaron,
yep.
Can we go over why this isn't a breaking change again?
Yeah, so right now, you actually need to call out append. So I don't know if that's captured in maybe this story. I'm not sure where it's called out, and someone else can please correct me if I'm wrong, but as of now, this is something that you need to explicitly call. So there's an additional overlay annotation that would exist in these lines.
Yeah, the breaking change would be you're going from an error state, which you ought not rely on, to a state that works. So the one case we thought of that was I'll call it viable would be that for some reason in your CI you're checking to make sure that your users use of YTT, work that one out, that you're trying to make sure that you give back good error messages when they might have provided invalid input. So that might break for you. But it is making something that was an error case is now a working case.
Thanks.
Yep, good question, good call out. Cool.
I think we talked about this last time as well, but do we have any insight of when we can deprecate add overlay append the annotation in our code? So when can we start deleting that from our code base? What's the plan look like for that?
Don't have one yet. There's also a long-standing operation called merge that exists, and we haven't deprecated that. So those two would probably follow the same fate. It may make sense just to leave them, and it's just they're more implied than they are used. And
cool. I guess I shouldn't have closed it out yet, but any other questions from folks? And we could even, I don't know, start a discussion or create a new issue around when to deprecate things or whether or not to deprecate things. So at least we have an artifact to point to. All right. So after that, following the, why don't I hit the filter? So now you only see schema stuff. It's a little nicer. Following that issue, then we have just an issue to track for documentation. So I know this is another story that the team has reviewed before, but I think high level kind of gist of this is, we're introducing this experimental schema feature. We want to tell users how to take advantage of it. And to do so, we want to provide some reference material as well as a guide to show, how to do this and kind of like walk you through the steps, as well as like the general introduction of what schemas are and the values it provides. Any thoughts on this, or anyone want to provide additional color?
One way to think about this, if you need an audience, these are the folks who are going to be kicking the tires on this feature. So what's the minimum amount of information I need to be successful in evaluating what's been implemented so far is kind of one tension. And then the other is providing enough of a foundation of explaining not just what you can do, but why the feature's there. Hopefully that's clear in the story. That's the intent.
Cool. And then the final thing we have in our backlog right now is conduct some usability testing for schemas. So I guess if someone is watching this, please, if you want to be a part of some of the usability testing, please let us know. Slack is always a great avenue. But we want to seek to verify that the functionality that we're providing for schemas and the problems we set out to solve are actually solved. We want to validate that the features we're releasing are useful, and if not, what are ways that we can improve them. Cool. So then if we expand, so jumping epics now, so this is onto image package non-distributable layers. So as we mentioned, there's already some work in flight there. We do have another piece of work after that, which is providing an update to GGCR, so Google's Go Container Registry, in order to provide this ability. So we kind of created a workaround for our use case right now, but we would like to try and contribute this upstream so that the library can do it as well. Let's see, anything else folks want to add to that?
Were we thinking of cutting a release before this chore in this track? So after we get the non-distributable flag implemented, but before we fix the library upstream, ship a release to get feedback, because this upstream change might take time to go through the PR process.
Yeah, I don't know if we've explicitly discussed it, but I mean, I'd certainly be okay cutting a release immediately. I'm not sure like what GGCR's release cadence look like. So if we were trying to only pull finals or something like that, final releases, it could be some time. But yeah, I don't know. Open to other folks' thoughts. I think it's a substantial enough feature that it deserves a release.
Yeah, my understanding, build service folk or someone's relying on this to run Windows workloads somewhere. So it'd be good to get feedback.
Yep.
Sooner.
Yep. Cool. All right, and so you can see that this particular epic is a smaller epic in the sense of like the number of stories it has. So that would wrap that work up. Then looking at the next thing we already kind of touched on was explore if image package copy is inefficient. So I know this is another story we had already discussed internally, but just to give folks some idea of what we're thinking here. So it was observed that some small images, such as like a simple hello world, would at times take 20 seconds to be copied. And we want to again, determine if this is still a problem, and if so, how are ways that we can improve it. We understand that if this tool does not perform in a expected manner, that it will certainly slow adoption and disappoint people. So we want to try and get ahead of this as people start using image package more. Yep.
What OCI registries have you used to test this with?
I'd probably kick it over to Dennis or Joao, I guess. One of y'all.
Well, the Docker registry, so we've definitely tested it against Docker Hub. And when we run it in the CI, we spin up a container that's running the registry image v2, I believe, tag. And I have run the test suite against Harbor as well, and that all went and worked. There's 3 different, I guess, registries.
We've also done GCR, Artifactory, and Azure, I think, in the past.
Okay, and you're seeing similar results across all registries? I'm just wondering if it's a registry issue or if it's an image package copy issue. That's all.
This was first noticed on Docker Hub, so we might need to do some testing, and that's like what step number 4 that talks a little bit about. So we can have on the acceptance criteria, we're asking for some sort of like a benchmarks that we can then try to apply to other registries and see if there's anything that it is like Docker Hub specific or not. And at the same time, also for us to know, like, if for some reason we do a change that increases greatly the time it takes for a copy to be done, we are noticed. So
Awesome.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for the questions. All right, then moving on to our next track of work. So I do want to check and see community meeting. Okay, so we did get a question asked. So I want to make sure that we have time to get to the question. Cool, so this is where I want to be. So next in our backlog would be image package support copying bundles referenced by other bundles and images lock. I'm curious, Joao, if the proposal is something worth going over right now, if that's better done asynchronously.
Up to y'all.
We can always link it.
We can go through it. Like I still haven't published it in like a broader place, but it is more or less finalized. It's just I just realized like a couple of minutes ago that we're missing like a little bit, but it's just a little bit that is going to be optional on the proposal. But we can definitely go through the proposal if you want to.
Okay, let me link to it. I linked to it from the GitHub issue.
So just that people know, this is going to be like, there's like a pretty version and a markdown version of it. So like the pretty version, it exists in HackMD, and that's exactly the one. It has like all the markdown rendered, but because it is hard for us to have like some sort of a conversation and be notified on HackMD, there is a PR on our on one of our repos that contains exactly this information that we can go back and forth. And the PR is inside our K14S docs proposals repo.
Okay. And I think we're planning to move this over.
Yeah, that's still not moved through. But if you go to pull requests there, and the first one, Yeah, there we go. So like that's exactly the same thing as HackMD. If you prefer to see it with the Markdown that's there, then go for it. If you prefer to see the Markdown pre-rendered for you, then you have the HackMD. As you can see, Dimitri already left some comments there. But yeah. So what do you want to do?
I guess I'm curious if we, or if you think that we'd be able to get through this in, gosh, 10 minutes.
Oh, definitely. I'll
Yeah.
try 5 here. So like the idea behind this feature is image package is able to transport a bundle that contains a group of images from one registry to another, or from one registry to a tar, and then you can put into a different registry, right? And one of the caveats that we saw here was that if, let's imagine that you have that you're like a packager of 2 applications and you want to create a bundle with said 2 applications. Image package does not allow you to package 2 bundles together in a single bundle. So let's imagine that you have, for example, I don't know, you have one application, like one microservice that is application A that the team bundled together. It has configuration and so on. And you have a microservice B that the other team bundled and had configuration to it. You as the packager that wants to package these 2 microservices together, you didn't have like a good way to do it, because you cannot point this new third package directly to these 2 bundles that the teams created. So the options that you as the person that is trying to package all these software together would be to extract the bundles that each team created and create your own bundle with all their configuration, or eventually just create some sort of a script for the end user to install these multiple bundles. So you'd have to say like, oh, get this bundle first and get this other bundle. Eventually I give you like a third bundle that has like some installation script to help you, but it would be a lot. So what we're proposing here is a way for you as a packager to say, oh, this huge bundle of software contains these 2 applications that are bundled separately and that each team bundles separately. And this bigger bundle will become like the place where you can just give it to the final user and say like, this is your bundle. And the only thing you need to do is you need to pull it, and then you'll have to somehow install it with any script that I give you or any kind of instruction. So this is more or less the idea behind the proposal that we have here. And then if you scroll a little bit down, there are like changes that need to happen for each of our operations that we do, right? So for example, like when you do the push of a bundle, you'll have to do we'll have to make sure, because today when you try to push a bundle that contains other bundles, you get an error message. So the idea here is that we'll stop having that check to start with, and we would push the bundle as it is, even if it has bundles on it. So this is like the smallest change footprint that we're proposing here. There's an extra proposal on this push command that will make sense when we get to the pool in a little bit. And that is, there will be a folder that eventually we want to ignore when we're trying to do the push, to prevent a case where you do like a pull and do a change and then do a push. Then you don't want to have some extra information that it's not part of that bundle to be pushed with it. So this is more or less the change that we're proposing in terms of like the bundle. So after that, there's the copy in itself, and we have copies from repo to tar, from tar to repo, and from repo to repo. And the major change that we have here is that now we need image package will have to be aware that a particular image that is trying to copy, it is a bundle. So it will have to retrieve all the images that are part of that bundle. And because we're not saying that this is going to be a one layer bundle, you might have a bundle of a bundle of a bundle of a bundle. Not ideal, but we're not going to cap that for now unless we see that there's like a big problem with that. So this is we have here on the document just more or less like some of that information and some of the sample output that we expect to have. The only thing that you need to make sure is that when you get to tar, when you create a copy to a tar, that we dedupe the layers so we don't have like duplicated layers being written to a tar, so it doesn't use that much disk. And I think that's all for the copy. So let's take a peek at the pool. And the pool is the complicated one, because when you pull it, you want to pull the configuration for all the bundles. So the proposal, what it proposes here is that we'll create a folder where we will stack all of the configurations from all the bundles, and that's where, like we were talking on the push that we wanted to ignore a folder. This was why. So the proposal asks when you pull an image that we will store the configuration in some folder that in this case is going to be this bundles. So it doesn't have like any conflict of naming. And this, it might be like the strange thing that we're doing here, but it is the name of the folder that we get. And if you see here, this is going to have a very similar format as the layers have in when you try to create a tar file from this. And why did we do this in this way? Because we don't know what image this is in the end. As image package just knows there's an image. So we decide to go with a SHA in here. And then the way we'll have to do, we or who's creating this package, this bigger package, this configuration here, would have to, if it wants to get their information, we'd have to read this file, the images.yaml file, to translate the name of this folder with the image that they care about. So there's like some information here. We talk a little bit about the cyclic nesting, because like one image can depend on another image, and that image can depend on the third, and the first one depend on the third as well, as it is represented in like this diagram here. We have some explanation about it. And in the end, this is more or less a proposal that we have. So if you have a little bit of time, just take a look at it and see if there's anything that pops out. That last part is a part that, like that part that says like list images in bundle, it's a part that it's not 100% flushed out, that I was writing down right now, because that was something that was going to be added. But I think that's it. Does anyone have any question?
Thanks for walking us through that. I'll link to the PR, since that's the best place to have this conversation.
Well, this might be just a quick one, but I was reading up on OCI artifact manifest spec, which maybe I've just read enough just to be dangerous enough to ask this question, but like essentially it's like a spec to basically map out dependencies between an artifact manifest, which sounds very similar to a bundle, to a bunch of other images or other artifact manifests, which might depend on other images. And this is a spec that is out there. I don't know how mature it is or whether it's still in development, but is there any overlap between, do you know about that spec? Is there any overlap between what we're trying to do here and the OCI spec there?
Are you talking about the PR that it is in
Yeah.
distribution? I
Yeah.
think it's still in PR mode, and it is an effort that's being somewhat led by the Notary team. And it is based on a lot on the fact that we want to assign images and we do not want to change the SHA of the images.
Oh wait, sorry. You said distribution. I said yes to that, but I should have said no. It's in the artifacts repo, and the spec is artifact manifest.
No, I'd have to read a little bit about it. But basically, this proposal is just to piggyback on what we have.
Okay, fair enough. I'll slack it.
Yeah, that's a good question, Dennis. Because on the face of it, it does seem like there's some overlap there. So yeah, definitely something for us to dig into to make sure that if there's something that's emerging as a way of expressing relationships like that, that if there's a separate mechanism, it's for cause and not just yet another way.
Well,
and if that's the PR that you just linked, yes, this is the PR that I was talking about.
Okay. Then I was right when I said yes then.
Yes, you were. But yeah, like this is a little bit different. Eventually might evolve into something that we could use in image package for creating the bundles or something. But for now, there's no, I have to read a little bit more about it.
Thanks for clarifying.
Okay, and just for the recording and the notes, you actually did both identify two different specs. There's one about like how should a registry that supports like distribution of or how should the distribution of images look versus this, which is like what is an artifact? How is that described? So just for the pedantics in the audience.
Great. So yeah, please take a moment to review the proposal. Once we get some feedback, we'll likely start writing some stories and executing on the work. So we have a little more than 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get back to a discussion topic that someone had asked a question. So what is the context behind the application labels, such as cat? What if current model uses this?
Yeah, I can also add some color to this as I wrote the question.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'm interested in the idea of how objects in Kubernetes gets grouped together as an application. And I've used cat. It's pretty sweet. I like it. And one of the things that I guess that jumps out at me in the beginning was that it created these labels and it's got these numbers. I think it might represent time or a hash. And I wanted to see I want to better understand how CAP knows that these objects relate to each other. And if I were to change something about the labels, or let's say I went in and patched something, what would happen? And also the idea that every time I do a new deploy, it creates a new config map of what changed. And I was wondering if I could get better context behind why it was done that way versus something like, say, patching the annotations to keep track of these deployments.
So I heard a couple of questions in there. I think and then there's which seemed different than the one that I read in the notes. So let's see. So there's a question about what was the origin or the thinking around the namespaces for the annotations that we selected. And then the first part of your question seemed really related to that. What was that again, Sam?
Yeah, so I wanted to know why these, what does the KApps or the caps labels do? Like, is whether it's like a, I think it's a timestamp, a hash. I'm not sure what it is and what it's used for.
Yeah, cool. Let's do that, and then grab the next ones next. So the short version of it is that this label is meant to be a GUID, and in fact, I would treat it as a black box string. It's just, here's a thing that identifies that app, and if there happens to be any relationship, if any of the characters resemble anybody you know in real life, that's a coincidence. So they're meant to be, it's meant to be identifying. So to answer the letter of your question that you wrote in, which was like, hey, there's all these common labels, why not use one of those? Like, say, like the instance one. That's in part because those are meant, the way we can understand as they are descriptive rather than identifying. Like, for example, the closest one that looks like a unique ID is the instance label, but that actually is a concatenation of a meaningful string like the name of the app. And your application operations shouldn't break because the name of the app changes. So it's a separate namespace that is more identifying. And then also, you can avoid collisions with other tooling that might rely on some implied schema inside any of those labels, if that helps.
Yeah, totally. Thank you.
Cool. And then there was a second part. What was the other thing you were?
Yeah, the second part was about how the caps deployments work. Every time anyone gets rolled out, it creates a new config map that tracks the changes and histories, presuming, of each new deployment. And so I guess given the context of the first question, so I don't actually, so like those config maps have no relationship to the, or I guess like they're not considered part of that deployment that I've applied to the cluster, right? Like, so for example, if I deleted that config map, it would not break the application. I would just lose history.
Yeah, we rely on the labels themselves. So I'm trying to think about where we put the app name to label mapping. Is that in the latest config map? Does anybody on the call remember? Some piece of this that it is historical. I'm trying to remember what you can prune. Yeah, I'd have to follow up with you, Sam, on that. I can't remember exact. I know that like there's a whole bunch of that stuff that you can prune off, and I think it's like just not the latest one.
Yeah, I also apologize. I probably could I could have also posted this on Slack and probably get a more longer form.
No, this is great. This is exactly why we hold this space, man. So you can show up and just have a conversation. Sometimes it's nice to be able to do that too. So that was great.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah, I'll follow up on this offline. As probably most of the meeting topics are on a different discussion.
Hey, Sam.
No, and that's
one request: whenever you do follow up, can you do it in the public Carvel channel on the Kubernetes Slack workspace?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for your questions, Sam. Those are really good to reveal not just what's happening, but why.
Cool. Anyone else have anything else they want to chat about for the last few minutes? All right. Well, maybe that was enough uncomfortable silence to move on. So yeah, please, if you have any feedback for this meeting, please let us know. This is our first iteration of this new format. If there's more information that you're looking for, or if this wasn't quite the information you wanted, please let us know what you're looking for. I don't know, Nancy, anything else you want to add?
Yeah, please join the Kubernetes Slack workspace in the Carvel project channel. You can provide feedback there, as well as within GitHub, and we're really looking to have these meetings foster community engagement with the team. So any and all feedback is welcome. But with that, thank you everyone for attending this first Monday's meeting for Carvel community meeting. This was recorded and it will be uploaded to the Carvel's playlist on YouTube. And I'll put that link also in the Slack channel and on Twitter so that you have access to it. But thank you, and we'll see everyone next week.